Hello and welcome to episode 25 of the podcast devoted to the classic and sometimes not so classic genre cinema of yesteryear. This is The Bride of Monster Kid Radio, and I'm your writer, host, and producer, Derek M. Cook, welcoming you to the show with a slightly different kind of song. This is a little outside the wheelhouse, but not quite. The song is called How I Had in Mind, and it's by my friend, your friend, and this week's guest, Robert Kelly. You can check this out over at wolfcubmusic.bandcamp.com or wolf-cub-music.com. I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes. You can check it out when you're done listening to this episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio. This is week 2 of 2025's Lucha de Mayo. I did it again. Lucha de Mayo. This is our usually annual tribute to luchador movies. I love me a good luchador movie. I love me a good spooky movie. I love it when they get mixed up together. And this time around, we are taking a luchador movie, we're adding some spookiness to it, and we're throwing in a third ingredient, the Western. This is a fun Santo film, and I talk about it with Robert Kelly. We catch up with Robert Kelly and find out what's going on with him on the podcasting front, on the music front, on everything else. That's coming up later on in this episode. Of course, that happens after our Beta Capsule review, which is our weekly series. I say our, but really, it's Mark Matzke doing the work here. It's his weekly series, his weekly review of the entire Ultraman franchise. We're still talking about Ultraman Ace, and this is another awesome episode that he's going to talk about, and another awesome installment of the Beta Capsule review. That's all coming up in this episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio, and we're going to get to all of that right now.
An army of deadly predators, searching, destroying anything in their path.
He's over at Colby's. He's found another 20 or 30 hills just like the one we burned.
Why did they come? What do they want?
Spiders in this area have organized themselves into an aggressive army.
William Shatner, Tiffany Bowling, your nightmares will never be the same. Kingdom of the Spiders. Rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
Listen to the flight of the vampire bat, summoned from Hades to kill, to destroy.
See Kiss of the Vampire in color.
Every once in a while, there is a special kind of horror film that becomes a horror classic. In 1931, it was Frankenstein. In 1932, it was Dracula. In 1971, it was Rosemary's Baby. In 1973, it was The Exorcist. And this year it is From Beyond the Grave. Secret worlds become public nightmares, where children's play toys are the devil's weapons. A truly terrifying motion picture, where death is just the beginning, and the grave is not just a resting place. And pleasant rooms become evil tombs. From Beyond the Grave, the horror picture you will remember all your life.
Live from the Land of Light in Nebula M78, home of the mighty Ultra Heroes, it's Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review. Ultraman Ace, Episode 39, Seven's Life, Ace's Life. After meeting up with Dan Umezu to give him his Christmas present, an Ultraman Ace vest, Hokuto ends up saving a child's life with the help of a stranger. As it turns out, the man who assists Hokuto is Dan's long-lost uncle Saburo, and his arrival generates an optimistic feeling about the year to come. Meanwhile, at TAC headquarters, it's revealed that the secret weapon Silver Shark is nearly complete. But their patrol group is attacked, and during the intense firefight, Hokuto finds a clue that may incriminate the Umezu's uncle. Hokuto confronts Saburo, and his suspicions are confirmed. Saburo is an alien in disguise who unleashes terrible monster Firemons. In a shocking move, the monster uses a flaming sword to kill Ultraman Ace. Ultra 7 appears to Ace in another dimension, but is it possible to revive the fallen warrior? 7's life, Ace's life, which debuted on December 29, 1972, makes numerous references to the new year, highlighting positive themes such as perseverance, hard work, and concern for others. It's also uncommonly action-packed, featuring 2 Ace transformations and 3 monster battles, as well as the appearance of fan favorite Ultra 7. The use of Tak's Silver Shark weapon is also notable as it allows them to actually destroy terrible monster Firemons themselves, without Ace's direct involvement. By now, the relationship between Hokuto and Dan is firmly established as the emotional bond at the show's heart, which is neatly paralleled by Ultra 7's older brother care for little brother Ace. All in all, it's an exciting way to bring 1972 to a close, with only 13 episodes left in the series. For Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review, this is Mark Matzke reporting.
Be prepared for terror as the screen unleashes the greatest double, all-monster, earth-shaking shock show. Cronus and She-Devil. Cronus, the most horrifying monster of all time, sucking up the world's lifeblood and atomic energy to keep his fiendish world of outer space alive. And She-Devil, hell's most gorgeous demon.
Have something to share with Bride of Monster Kid Radio? You can email the show at monsterkidradio@gmail.com, or you can call and leave a voicemail at 360-524-2484.
Coming soon, this June, it's the Monster Bash Conference at the Pittsburgh Marriott North in Cranberry Township. Fans of classic horror and science fiction films and TV will gather from across the United States and beyond. It's where you can meet and get autographs from movie and TV actors and actresses. This June 20th through the 22nd, 2025, meet Catherine Lee Scott and Sharon Smythe from the original Dark Shadows TV show, plus writer and zombie from the original Night of the Living Dead, John Russo, and the kids and grandkids of the original Universal Monsters, Frankenstein, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Dracula, the Wolfman, and the Mummy, Ron Chaney, Lynn Lugosi, Renee Browning. Also appearing, the Monsters movie grandpa Daniel Roebuck, TV horror host Son of Ghoul, an Ohio TV legend, and horror host Mr. Lobo. Renegade monster movie director David The Rock Nelson will be filming on site as well. You'll love shopping over 100 vendor tables featuring movie collectibles, DVDs, Blu-rays, vintage toys, vinyl records, monster magazines, comic books, and more to boggle your eyes. Rare film screenings, special talks, and live game shows where you can win great prizes. It's all part of Monster Bash at the Pittsburgh Marriott North, June 20th through the 22nd, 2025. For discounted advance admission, go to the website monsterbash.us. That's monsterbash.us. Or call 724-238-4317 for more information.
We love the Monster Bash! Woo!
I am Dracula, and I bid you welcome to the podcast devoted to the classic, and sometimes not so classic, genre cinema of yesteryear. And I offer you this warning. Sometimes Derek and his guests get excited, and they may spoil a movie or two. You know how excited monster kids can get sometimes. If Monster Kid Radio spoils a movie for you, do not come whining to me. I cannot stand whines.
Well, listeners, it is week 2 of 2025's Lucha de Mayo, and keeping in theme with what I did last week, I'm talking about another movie that was a first-time watch for me. This is one that I thought I had seen and even kind of alluded to it a little bit last week, but no, this was a fresh watch for me. So I was a little surprised to see lepers in my Santo movie. And I hold Robert Kelly responsible for that because he's the one that recommended we check out this movie. Robert Kelly, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, Derek. How are you?
I'm good. Listeners, you might recognize the man's voice. He's been on the podcast before. He's a Monster Kid Radio irregular, for sure. He's also the man behind the Record All Monsters podcast, which he assured me before we started recording will have another season in the future. He's also an author, and since the last time we've had him on, he started a music career.
Yeah, that's always been something of a minor side hustle of mine, but with some circumstances in life, I had to put more eggs in that particular basket, and it's working out pretty well.
What is the website? Because you call yourself the Wolf Cub of Comal County. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, sir. Wolf Cub of Comal County. You can find my music endeavors at wolf-cub-music.com.
I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes, of course, as well as to Record All Monsters and anything else that we can think of where listeners might want to learn a little bit more about what you are up to. I do recommend people check out your music. It is available on Spotify and
Bandcamp as well.
Is it on Bandcamp? Okay, good. I like Bandcamp a lot, so people should check it out. How would you describe it? What kind of music is it?
I generally consider myself somewhere between a folk singer and a rockabilly thing. Someone I know who I won't name because this might get them hurt described it as, what if Johnny Cash had range in a surf band?
Okay.
So, yeah, there's a lot of rhythmic acoustic guitar, some very spaghetti western surf electric guitar, courtesy of my friend Nathaniel Smith, who's a great artist and guitarist. He did the art for the first single, actually. And great bass line. Sounds like bombs falling by another friend of mine who's been on Record All Monsters before, Ray Hanley. I'm really proud of those first 2 recorded songs, and I'm working on an album, hopefully have that out in the winter.
Which would be really cool. And you can even see him live. I'll mention this again probably at the end, but you've got some shows coming up, which you can find at wolf-cub-music.com. If you're in the great state of Texas. I was going to say Texas area, but that's a lot of area to cover.
That's a lot of area. You're in the Austin, San Antonio area?
There you go. You got some shows coming up as well, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
So Record All Monsters, like I said, we got a new season coming eventually. And I do know that I think the last time we had you on, we talked about doing a Lucio Fulci project, which life happened, man. You know, I relocated and you've had some stuff going on, but that is still in the works as well.
Yeah, the first episode we recorded already.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once we have a few stockpiled, we're going to start putting that out. No timeline at this point, but once we got that, you know, you'll hear about it.
I'm excited for it. I'm really excited because we're going to be talking about a Fulci movie called Massacre Time, which is one of his Westerns. And I love me a good spaghetti Western.
I think it's his best Western of the, I think he did 3. My favorite of them, at the very least. And we'll go into why. And you can hear that whenever we put that out.
Yeah, at some point. But I was hoping we could use this whole talk about Westerns to segue into the movie we're talking about here, which is a Western luchador movie. What? What?
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
I didn't expect this at all. I did not expect it to be so Western-y. Like, I know The Riders of Terror sounds like a cowboy movie, and the poster and the lobby cards make it pretty clear this is a Western. This is a cowboy thing that we just happen to have a luchador in, and there's even a wrestling match. It's What?
It's amazing. So this I saw this movie for the first time on that VCI Santo box set that came out a few years ago.
Yep. And it looks gorgeous, by the way. They did a really good job with the picture.
Gorgeous. They only have a new English dub, which is actually pretty good so far as those things go on the disc. I believe Indicator has put it out as a region-free disc with the Spanish version, but Indicator's a bit pricier than... So whichever one, you're getting a good film, or a fun film, or a good film. I love this movie. This is one of my favorites off that box set. This and versus Frankenstein's Daughter, where Santo and the Frankenstein monster team up to fight evil. Two of the best movies I've ever seen.
And you should have heard about the movies he was talking about before we hit record. Santo versus the Riders of Terror came out in 1970. It's directed by René Cardona. So we are back with a very comfortable director when it comes to directing luchador action. Yeah. Last week I was trying to get the point across that René Cardona is almost synonymous with these films when I think about them, because he was involved with so many of them. He was also one of the writers on the film. But this one it's so weird and kind of a curveball for me, because when I think about Santo movies, I think about the early Santo movies where it's just kind of like an action, not really a spy movie, but there's maybe some thriller elements. And then you get into the weird monster stuff, which I adore. Apparently Santo wanted to play cowboy.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say.
And to Santo, that meant, of course, the mask, but also a blue velvet pearl snap shirt and white corduroy bell bottoms.
And he wrestled in those cowboy boots, so I'm going to give him that.
Yeah, the silver cowboy boots.
Of course.
Of course. God, this movie. This movie. And
it's so out there, but it does follow the typical Santo formula where there's a problem happening. Good guys, very obvious good guys, are dealing with some very obvious bad guy elements. And hey, wait a minute, I know Santo. I'm going to call him for help. So instead of a professor or a teacher that needs help, this time it's the town sheriff who needs help, and he knows Santo, so he's going to call him or send a message to him, or however it is he got a hold of him, to have him come to this little town and help.
And the way we find Santo about 15 minutes into the movie is he is wrestling a street tough for money to give nuns for their orphanage.
Because you got to help the orphans. Another Santo trope, right?
Yeah. Oh man, how can you not? Like this is red meat for me. You know, like I'm in heaven. You got. I've compared. I think last year when I was on Lucha de Mayo, which by the way, kudos on the pronunciation, Derek. You didn't even blink. Like you just
this time I've been practicing, but I still mess it up occasionally.
But last time I was on for Lucha de Mayo, I said that Santo movies remind me so much of the Adam West Batman series, the 60s Batman.
Sure.
And this one is more like I had it on. It's almost like a Zartana Western. That's the one where the guy has like the fiddly gun bits and everything. Like,
yeah.
But there's still this like just this cartoon black and white morality to it.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, they make sure, because some of the villains in this movie are lepers. And they are so clear in this Santo movie way to say they're not bad people. They're in a desperate situation, which is why they're committing crimes. They're hungry and scared because they've escaped from the leper colony where they were being mistreated. And they actually only commit one crime. They break into someone's house and steal their food.
Yep.
And then they bolt before the real bad guys start using the escaped lepers as an excuse to up their criminal activities. Which is great. It's like the subtle. This has all the subtlety of a jackhammer. And there's a point where the main bad guy says, "Let's loop the lepers in and then betray them." And one of his henchmen says, "Are you comfortable with that?" He goes, "Yeah, I've lost sight of my morality when I started down this path." Like, just nakedly, like, "Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm a bad guy now. I'm a bad guy now. I do bad guy stuff."
That's what I...
And, oh, man, but yeah, so we meet Santo, and he's, there's this big guy in the street, and someone sitting next to him and being like, "Well, give 10,000 pesos to the winner, whoever can beat this guy." And these nuns are walking with El Santo, and they're like, "Oh, Santo, could you please wrestle this man for us and get the money for the orphanage?" And he's like, "Of course, it'd be good to give the money to the orphanage." And he wrestles this guy in the street and gives the money to the orphans. And right after, the sheriff's messenger comes and is like, "Hey, you need to meet the sheriff because there's this problem in his town." And so he turns to the nuns and hands them the big bag of money and says, "I have to go now. Say hello to the orphans for me." And
I want to comment on the nuns because I think there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
And they're all in varying degrees of excited about what's happening. Like, there's the younger nun who's really into the match. She's like, "Oh boy, yay!" And then she looks at the other 2 and she's kind of ashamed. She had this outburst. And you keep saying they're wrestling in the street, and that's true. But it is a ring. I mean, they've got ropes.
Yes, they've got them. Yeah.
Come on.
But it's in the middle of the street.
Yeah. It goes back to the old days of pro wrestling, right? Where and I'm sure this is what they were thinking. I'm positive. I am saying with all the sarcasm I can communicate in a podcast. It goes back to the old days of pro wrestling when it was a carny act. It was a carnival sideshow thing where, they would bring people in and fleece them for their money and that sort of thing. But Santo's not having any of that. He's the honorable wrestler, and he's going to make the money for the orphans. And there's even a moment where the guy who's like, "Are you really going to take all of my money?" "Oh, yes, for the orphans." I love it.
The orphans need it more than you. One of the things I love about this scene where we meet, though, again, blue velvet pearl snap shirt.
He looks cool, man. I want to live in that world. I really do. Luchador movies from the 60s and 70s had the best fashion. Like the one time I put on a mask for introducing Emil Mosker's film at Weird Wednesday at the Joy Cinema back in the day, I wore a mock black turtleneck and my suit jacket and had my mask on, and man, it just feels cool and it looks cool, man. I love it.
I have gone as Santo for Halloween a few times.
Yeah.
And I wear the mask and I wear a turtleneck if I can get it.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's not too boiling hot because I'm already going to be in the mask. And it's usually still around 95 degrees here in Texas at Halloween. You're in Arizona now, so you know how that...
I do.
But just... The earnestness of the whole thing and the people in the street cheering like, "Yeah, get him, Santo." The one nun who, and it's not the young nun who's been overexcited the whole time, I don't think. It's one of the other nuns. She's been calmer, but near the end when Santo is clearly winning, she goes, "Kill him! Oh, God, forgive me."
Oh man, I love it though. The introduction, of course, it's through a wrestling match. Again, another trope of these movies is the first time we see our luchadors is in the ring, is in some action. And Santo was very involved in kind of guiding his image with these movies at this point in his career. So yes, he is very clean cut, very concerned about the orphans, doing everything the right way. I was a little surprised to see blood in this movie, the way that we did. There are some gunshots that happen, and a lot of times it's, somebody grabs their stomach and doubles over and falls off camera. But there are a few other times, especially when people are being shot in the back, you actually see the bullet hit and a squib burst and blood splatters all over the place.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised to see that. I thought Santo was kind of anti-blood for that sort of stuff, but
it's not like Tarantino blood spurts or anything.
No.
But it is more than you'd generally expect for anything Santo related. But I almost feel like the gunplay in this is kind of horrific, and I think that might be like the gun is a monster in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is a cheater's tool, And you notice Santo, he uses a gun as a club a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
He uses it to get the bad guys to drop their weapons at one point. But he never shoots a gun in the whole thing. So I wonder if that might have been part of the thinking with the way the guns are used in this and the blood. It's like, no, guns are not. This isn't the A-Team, which hadn't come out, where you point a gun at someone and 5 people fall over and there's an explosion in the background.
Right.
This is something kind of horrific, the way the gun is being used. But yeah, that was shocking the first time I saw this, because I'd been going through this box set, and there's like when I first got it, and even like the vampire ones, like you barely see any blood.
Right. And I'd watch all the other movies in that set. I have the set. For whatever reason, I didn't get into this one, and I don't know why. I mean, it worked out great because I got to do a first-time watch on this one for this conversation. I don't know why I didn't get to it before. But yeah, the few splashes of blood were a little like, oh, hello. And the leper makeup maybe suffers a little bit from the picture being so cleaned up. You can obviously tell they're just stuck on, but you
can see, if you focus on the actual like body of the sore, it's not bad. But when you can see on some of them where the edges are, where it was applied, one of the lepers is speaking at one point, and it's the edge of it comes right up to his mouth, and you can kind of see it crinkling. And the hands aren't as good as the face and neck stuff.
But that's okay.
Honestly, it's part of the charm of this kind of movie, is, where you can see the scenes. They're doing the best they can, and it's entertaining. That's the biggest thing, is you're entertained the whole time.
It feels like, yes, it's a Western. It's from the 70s. I couldn't help but notice that maybe there's a little bit of a spaghetti Western influence to some of it.
Especially through the soundtrack.
The soundtrack was fantastic. Okay, I love the score on this, and I commented on this last week as well. I wish the soundtrack albums for a lot of these movies were available, because I would snatch this one right up. It feels like a blend between like a spaghetti Western and almost kind of like Carl Orff's Carmita Burana in spots. It just has this wonderful vibe. I loved it. So good. So good. But the music and some of the way the story is constructed, with the villains aren't really the villains. They're just in this unfortunate circumstance. There's another set of villains that are going to be even more villainous toward the so-called villains. And there's some double crossing happening and manipulations happening and all that. It didn't feel like a straightforward Western to me, which I appreciate.
No.
I respond well to that spaghetti Western style.
For how black and white they make the true villains and heroes of the movie, the center of the movie is the lepers, and that is so morally gray, especially for a Santo movie. Like, that's not something you would expect generally. There are a lot of surprises in this one. I really appreciate it for that reason. I think that might be why this one and Frankenstein's Daughter are two of my favorites, because they are both some of the rare ones that have that kind of nuance, where you have, Santo coming to an understanding with the Frankenstein creature in that movie. And then here you have him and the sheriff immediately knowing, well, hold on, why would the lepers be doing this?
Right.
Yeah, it's just not the kind of nuance you normally see in a Santo movie of this vintage. And that's another reason I love it.
It's different. And I mean, sometimes we watch these movies because we like the samey stuff. Yeah, Santo's going to do this, and we like that trope, and we like that he does that, and whatever. But give me something with a little bit of a different take or spin. You got my attention.
Yeah, well, and one of the things, going along with that is the fights in this. They're not very wrestly for the most part. They're brawls. Santo's fighting more than one guy a lot of times, and he's not just dominating like he often does in the wrestling matches. He's never not in control, but he's getting thrown to the ground. He's getting hurt. He's getting dust all over that blue velvet pearl snap.
Yeah, I noticed that. It got pretty dirty there for a little bit, but then when the scene was over, he's walking away. It's clean again.
It's clean. It's got to be clean. We get some fairly clever writing throughout as well. There's a transition where Santo sets up a trap with the sheriff for the bad guys. He compares it to a coyote trap. And the scene ends. They don't explain it overtly. And then of course the bad guy comes up and he's like, I'm like a coyote. This might be a trap. But I'll give the other scene the credit. It's due, not just spelling it out. But
you mentioned, you said the word transition, and that caught my attention because this movie does have a very obvious kind of sound effect every time we're going to a new scene. And every time I heard that, I thought, now this is when we turn the page or we advance the slide in the story. It's very much. And sometimes the scenes are only 30 seconds long. It just kind of happened.
When you hear the harp.
Exactly.
When you hear the harp, change the reel.
Yeah. Yep. But again, that contributes to the charm of the whole thing because it's got this vibrant picture, vibrant colors. It would be easy to kind of lose Santo in a bunch of white because he's silver and it's reflective and all that. They put him in that blue shirt, that dark blue shirt, and he's looking so good. And the color is awesome. So, I mean, it's got all of this stuff going for it to kind of make it this storybook kind of story. And I loved it, man.
I can't sing this movie's praises highly enough in terms of it's so good and pure. And again, the lengths they go to make sure the lepers aren't bad people. They are people in a bad circumstance. And just that's not something you generally see in this kind of movie, And they even talk about what are the different forms of leprosy. There's a little science lesson, but there's actual information in it. Instead of in the Treasure of Dracula, where a science lesson has to do with time travel.
There's a kidnapping plot. The sheriff's girlfriend or fiance. Do they ever really? Is it a fiance? I think it's just a girlfriend, isn't it? I don't think they're engaged, are they?
I think it's just his girlfriend.
Yeah.
No, the one of the lepers has a fiance, and she's like, "I thought you were dead. You disappeared." But I think it's just his girlfriend. Her father dies in one of the first scenes of the movie. And so she's in a mourning dress the whole rest of the movie. So she stands out a lot because she's just in stark black the whole time, and she's kind of the Greek chorus telling us what the general population is feeling. I mean, I hate these lepers, and I reason. And then when we meet the leper's fiance, she's also very reasonable.
We have the kidnapping plot. We've got the villain. What was the end game for the villains? Just to have all the money? Was that all this was a money thing?
From what I gathered, the new sheriff in town, he's just a good guy, and they were making their money through one of their group had been the sheriff, and he was corrupt, and so they were enriching themselves in that way, and now they were having to do crimes to be doing that, and they used the leper breakout as an excuse, really, to amp up how much they were doing.
Right. So the plot,
so it's not really fully explained.
The plot sounds like it could be overly simple, a little threadbare, but it's the little bits, the little nuances, the little twists that they put into the formula here that really made this one stand out. It does leave me with a little bit of a disappointment, though, and it's not about the movie, but it's about the Santo franchise. I really wish there was some sort of an attempt at continuity between a lot of the Santo films. And I know there's no way to do it, not with how these movies are now. I just would have liked to have known why the Santo that I saw dealing with Frankenstein's daughter or teaming up with Blue Demon or whatever is now in a cowboy setting in the Old West. I just wanted, and it would be nice to have, I know then you'd have to make it a time travel thing or something. I don't know. But I just, maybe a little bit more, but otherwise, man, I love the movie as a standalone.
Well, the way I think about it, I talk about this in Record All Monsters a lot. There's kind of the traditional hero saint story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those are all once upon a time, right? Once upon a time, guy got his cart stuck in the road. He wasn't strong enough to move it. Hercules shows up, moves the cart, right? Now, where does we have a canon of Hercules stories from Greek mythology? Where does this fit in? And I kind of take the Santo movies in the same way. He's just this hero once upon a time. These are myths that we're seeing in real time that happen to be a real man who you could go and watch fight at some point. And, you could meet him at the grocery store. The time, the setting, the continuity, it's not as important as it is with like a Marvel movie, because you can't go see Tony Stark do Iron Man stuff at, the Majestic Theater, but you could have gone and seen Santo at the stadium.
That's a good point. Yeah, and it's not, when I say my disappointment, that might even be too big of a word for what I'm really feeling, because I'm not disappointed by this movie at all. And I have yet to watch a luchador movie that has left me disappointed. Listeners of Monster Kid Radio, Bride of Monster Kid Radio, know that I'm always able to find something to love about every movie that we talk about here for the most part. Mm-hmm. It's not that hard for me to find something to love about this movie or any of them. Gosh. I talked about this last week too, that Santo was never really my guy. And I'm more of a Mil Mascaras guy. I don't know why. I just am drawn to Mil Mascaras more. But having watched these two Santo movies back to back, this one and the one last week, the Vengeance of the Crying Woman, I don't know, man. Santo might be moving up there for me. I always put him in my number 3 slot, but now, I think I might have to put him above Blue Demon. Sorry, Kenny. I know, but Santo's pretty awesome.
Derek, it's okay to be right. It's okay to be right. You're almost there,
Oh, come on now.
Santo's the king.
Santo is, without Santo, we wouldn't have this subgenre that we talk about and we love so much. I know he didn't start it, but he definitely became the face of it.
Yes. And, as much as I do love Blue Demon and Mil Mascaras, but there's no murals of them at the taqueria that my grandmother goes to in the valley, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But there is a mural, and I sent this to you.
Yep. Yep.
There is a mural of Santo surrounded by angels,
Yep.
you know? So, I mean,
he's the man. He's the king of this stuff.
yeah, there's a reason.
There is a reason, and maybe it's because he did cultivate such an image, and he really committed to the gimmick. And we talked about that last week too, about being buried in his mask and quote unquote accidentally revealing his face only at the end of his life on television.
Yes.
Whether or not that was on purpose or not, can be disputed. But he was committed to the gimmick, and he was committed to making these kind of family-friendly adventure movies that this 51-year-old loves.
Yeah, man.
Like,
I didn't quite grow up with them. They were like around. I'd see them on TV sometimes, and it was just like, oh, this is incredible. I wish I had some like way of knowing what these were.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad that I was able to grow up into the kind of person who like has access to this, and that this is a part of my heritage and my culture, that I can, proudly like, there's a lot in my Mexican heritage that I can, show off.
Mm-hmm.
But especially these luchador movies, like the sincerity, the earnestness, the goodness, the kindness of these movies.
Yes.
That's Mexican culture, that it's the hero saint who totally selfless, he's not getting anything out of this. He's doing it because it's the right thing. And that's the point of Santo. It's the same thing as with Superman, the fantasy isn't what if I was that powerful. It's what if someone good had that much power,
Mm-hmm.
And that's Santo, he's just the best. He's just the best guy. And he uses all of his God-given gifts, for the orphans and the lepers and the fatherless adult women. And, like, that's Santo.
He doesn't even see, and this is on purpose, he's not even afraid of the lepers at the end.
No.
I mentioned it was a kidnapping plot, and it is, but they also tie up the lepers because apparently they're done with them with their scheme. And when Santo is freeing everybody, he pauses for a second, but it's not out of fear. It's not out of disgust. I think it's more out of I'm going to free at least one of them so they can free the others. How do I do it to where I don't expose myself? Because it's going to happen. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I just got to do it smart. There's not kind of like withdrawal or disgust. It's how do I do it smart because it's going to get done. And I love that.
He immediately thinks that the lepers are not to blame because he learns about leprosy, and he's like, they're in a considerable amount of physical pain.
Mm-hmm.
What I've seen these guys do is not that's not the actions of men in chronic pain.
Yeah.
He is equally good to everyone until they give him a reason not to be.
Right.
Even the bad guys, he's willing to live and let live until the main bad guy, Camarino, challenges him in the street.
Mm-hmm.
And then Santo just lays him out. And it's not a wrestling match. There's a couple of holds, but for the most part, it's a brawl. They're punching each other, they're kicking each other, they're throwing each other to the ground.
He's a little older here, like last week's movie. He's in his 50s. This movie came out when he was 53 years old. But the guy was in great shape, and I mean he could still go, but I mean you're talking about he's still good. He had access to guns. He's using a rifle, but not as a rifle, as a club. There's pistols. There's all this stuff around. He doesn't use any of it. He uses his brawling and ability, and he uses his brains.
Yeah,
He's a good
and
guy.
he comes up with plans and ideas the whole time. He's the smartest man in the room at any given scene. Again, very much like the Adam West Batman show. Like, it's just the pure goodness radiating out.
Yeah. I want to wrap up this conversation about the movie with you by posing to you the same question that I posed to Beth last week, and that is, would a wrestling movie work today? Obviously, there's some silliness involved in that sort of thing, and we know now wrestling is a work. It's scripted. It's still athletic as all get out, but, it's planned. What I love about these movies, these luchador movies, that it exists in a world in which kayfabe is very much alive. Kayfabe being the reality of the wrestling, that they're not pre-planned, they really are wrestling to their best ability and whatever. Would a movie like that work today where the wrestling is quote unquote real and they're going on some adventure, they're fighting monsters or righting wrongs? Do you think something like that could work?
I don't know that we have figures that have the impact that could pull that off. I don't even think The Rock has has worked so hard at, I'm an actor, even though I don't think anyone really takes him seriously in that vein.
He makes a lot of money though doing it. So
he does make a lot of money doing it, but I think maybe near the beginning of his career, he had that kind of following that maybe he could have done that. I don't think anyone, I don't think anyone in the major, like WWE, could do something like that. I've seen some local or independent wrestlers who I think they could pull off that kind of movie. I don't know who would make it. I don't know who would see it besides me.
Well, and
yeah. I mean, hey, sign me up for the Luigi Primo movie whenever that comes out.
he wrestles for JCW now. Have you noticed? Have you watched any of that stuff?
Not a lot, but a little bit. I've seen some stuff.
Luigi Primo is a pizza maker wrestler. It's wonderful. It's so silly. I love it.
Again, the closest thing I think we could get is, I know a lot of people roll their eyes about it, or they worry about the cultural sensitivity of it. Nacho Libre, it brought so much lucha into the conversation for Americans.
Okay.
I also think it very much carries that kind of sincerity and kindness of heart that makes these movies special. And I think more movies about lucha libre, maybe with that same kind of openness and sweetness, I think that would be the way to go. And, take the trappings, take what made these movies special, and amplify and adapt it.
Okay.
That's my long-winded answer.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I would love to see him. Like I said, Mil Mascaras did a series of movies in the 90s, early 2000s. So he's probably the most recently active of them. I've only seen 2 of the 3 because I never got my hands on the third one. I haven't been able to find it anywhere.
Yeah.
But Mil Mascaras versus the Aztec Mummy and Academy of Doom, in which he's not very involved, but he's still there. The Aztec Mummy movie is actually the one I introduced with the mask on and all that. I came out and what do I call myself? El Monstro Infantino or something like that. Yeah, this that was fun, and that mask was hot. Oof.
Yes,
matter of respect.
They are hot.
Because it holds all the heat that comes out of your head right there, and it's
yeah.
I would love to see a movie like that. Where it's a legitimate, sincere approach. But you're right, I couldn't see it with like a WWE or AEW or any of the bigger, whatever. You mentioned The Rock, John Cena's got a big following, but they're both currently heels, so I don't know if that would work. And yeah.
I
don't know.
I don't know if it could happen with our current crop of well-known professional wrestlers. But, never say never. If
sure.
If something if something comes out like that, I'll give it a shot for sure.
Heck yeah.
But
Heck yeah.
so I have a question for you now, Derek.
Hit me.
Would that be your lucha name?
El Monstro Infantino?
Yeah.
Kind of like it.
El Monstro Infantino.
I kind of like it. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Very good.
I need to get a custom mask made. The mask that I had was one that I bought at a store in Portland out of I think it was an army surplus store. They had a big barrel full of masks. I don't know where they got them from. But that's where I picked mine up from. So I have like 5 or 6 of them. So I'm sure the design is based on some luchador somewhere that I'm not aware of. I'd like to get a custom mask made someday.
Have you thought about what colors and schema and all that?
I really haven't. So listeners, I'm all ears, man. I know we got some artists out there. You want to design me a custom luchador mask? I would love to see it. Would love to see it. It'd be fun. It would give me an excuse to start going to the gym and getting into shape, so I can go out and fight crime as a luchador, and raise money for orphans and such.
Yeah.
I could probably pull that off once.
Hey, that's enough. That's enough time.
Now there's a lot of indie wrestling down here in Arizona. I haven't really explored the scene as much as I'd like, but there are a lot more luchadors down here than there were up in the Portland area. Go figure.
There's here in San Antonio, nearby, there's a mall that has a wrestling store on Thursday nights. They have in-store matches.
Oh, that would be awesome. I'd go every week.
Yeah, I don't
pick you up on the way.
With the music, I don't always get to go, but when I have gone, it's a lot of fun.
Oh, that would be awesome. No, we've been to one indie show here, and it was a blast. It was so much fun. We went. They were giving away free tickets at a taco shop that was all luchador themed. They had paintings on the wall. Santo was there, and one of my favorites was on the wall. And I always mispronounce it. Tinieblas,
yeah,
yeah. He's one of my favorites. I love him when he appears in the movies, and I know there's another version of him now wrestling these days. But his mask, the gold mask with the black chevron, I just love the design of that. It's always stood out to me. In fact, I found somebody making custom Lego minifigures online, and just today I placed an order for one of those because they had one. So I've got him coming. I've been gifted Lego minifigure versions of Santo, Blue Demon, and Mamaskras in the past. And I'm currently working on a few Lego designs, including redoing their donut truck to make it a luchador donut truck, a lucha donut. And I want to have luchadors at it, so I got to have my Tinieblas. He seems like the kind of guy who would like a donut. I've completely nerded out here on things that have nothing to do with monster movies, but you know what?
Oh, hey, it's all family.
Yeah.
It's all family.
So I want to know more about the music and where people can go. I know we mentioned it at the very beginning, but I want to bring it up again. How are you listed on Bandcamp?
I'm listed on Bandcamp. I believe that is also at Wolfcub Music. Yeah, wolfcubmusic.bandcamp.com is where you will find my 2 singles that are out, Scared to Death and How I Had in Mind. That one just came out in April.
I've been listening to How I Had in Mind a lot. I think it's a lot of fun. I really like it. I love your voice, dude. This is not necessarily in my wheelhouse when it comes to the kind of music that I just normally listen to, whatever. But I've enjoyed it quite a bit, and I cannot wait for your album. I will be picking it up.
I appreciate that. Hopefully it's going to be all the same band and everything. It's written, it's being rehearsed, and hopefully we'll be recording it through the summer and fall.
That'd be awesome. Please keep us posted.
For sure.
And, if you post anything on Facebook, you're always welcome to cross-post it to the Monster Kid Radio Facebook socials. Would love to support fellow Monster Kids, in whatever endeavor they're involved with.
Thank you, Derek. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on again. It's always a great time.
Oh, it's been way too long, but we're slowly back into the swing of things, and we'll do much more podcasting in the future, more writing projects in the future. I wish you the best, man. I really do. This is awesome.
You too, man.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Mark Matzke for the continued awesomeness, ultra awesomeness that comes with the Beta Capsule review. Thank you to Robert Kelly for making the time to be part of this week's podcast to continue our celebration of Lucha de Mayo. And thank you to you, listener, for listening, for downloading, and for hopefully sharing and talking about this podcast wherever it is you hang out online, whether it's social media like Facebook or X or Blue Sky or Reddit or Patreon or the Classic Horror Film Board, or basically anywhere. We appreciate you helping to spread the word and letting people know about what it is you listen to every time we put out a new episode every Monday morning at 2 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. I am thrilled to have you along for the ride. You can learn more about the podcast over at monsterkidradio.net. Yes, I know the podcast website needs a little bit of a refreshing. However, this is always where you're going to want to go to find out more about the podcast, up to and including our contact information. If you have any thoughts about this week's episode or anything you've heard about here on the podcast, you can always email me at monsterkidradio@gmail.com, or you can call and leave us a voicemail at 360-524-2484. There will be a link to the Classic Horror Film Board over here on the website as well, and I mention it because since our last episode, the Rondo Hatton Classic Horror Awards have been announced, and I am so happy and so thrilled and so thankful for all of you who helped make this happen. Larry Underwood, Dr. Gangrene, is now an official Monster Kid Hall of Famer. How cool is that? I am so thrilled that his work in, well, all of Monster Kiddom, whether it's as a horror host or a filmmaker or an author or a columnist or, well, all the other things that he does for the community, I'm so happy that it's been recognized and he's being inducted into the Monster Kid Hall of Fame. Also, and I'm not just going to go through the entire list because I'm sure I'm going to forget somebody, but I also want to give a huge shout out to Penny Dreadful for Best Podcast. Tara at Collinwood is now a Rondo Award winning podcast. You know, Penny, Danielle, she's awesome. She's one of my favorite people, and I am so happy that she is now a Rondo Hatton Classic Horror Award winner for all the work that she does at the Tara at Collinwood, A Dark Shadows podcast. Head over to rondoaward.com to check out all the nominees and all the winners. Eric Grayson, Monster Kid of the Year, by the way, congratulations as well. What's coming up next week on the show? Well, if we can make it happen, Kenny from All Mexico is going to be coming back to the podcast. We're finally going to get him back on the air, and we're going to be talking about a Blue Demon movie. We've talked a lot about Santo, but let's get some Blue Demon up in here, yeah? Yeah. So that'll be coming up next week on the show if Kenny and I can make our schedules align. So stay tuned for that. Head over to patreon.com/monsterkidradio because this is where I have been subtly making the announcement about what's coming up on the next episode of the show before anywhere else. If you check out the show notes over at monsterkidradio.net and check out the next week on the podcast section, it'll just say coming soon. But if you go to patreon.com/monsterkidradio and check out the show notes over there, well, I announced that Robert was going to be on the show this week, and that's how we're going to do it. Moving forward, patreon.com/monsterkidradio should be your first stop when you want to check out the show notes. You can follow us over on Patreon for free. Of course, you can always become a paid member as well, and that helps us out. But you can follow us on Patreon for free, and I would love for you to do so. You know what else is free? This upcoming Saturday, May 17th, twitch.tv/monsterkidradio, starting at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. We're going to be showing some movies for free, and we would love for you to join us. Check it out. We're going to be showing luchador movies because it is Lucha de Mayo. We got to show some luchador movies. including the 2 movies that we've talked about so far here on the show. And we're going to talk about that Blue Demon movie too. If, again, we can make it all work out with Kenny and his schedule. We're going to be showing some other movies over there as well, so make sure you go to twitch.tv/MonsterKidRadio. Follow us over there. It's free to do that as well, and if you do that, you'll be notified every time we go live. I would love to see you over there catching up on some luchador movies with just a whole bunch of other monster kids. It's a lot of fun. It's awesome, and it's the only time I'm going to say it's a good thing to chat and talk during the movie, because there's an ongoing chat the entire time. So check it out over on Twitch. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time next week as well. Hopefully we make it work out with Kenny. Either way, it'll be good. Bride of Monster Kid Radio is a Team Death production. All original content of Bride of Monster Kid Radio is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 Unported license. You can learn more about Team Death, our other projects like Death Designs, Mail Order Zombie, the Team Death YouTube channel, and more at www.teamdeath.com. Remember, death is spelled D-E-T-H. All previous episodes of this podcast, as well as the original Monster Kid Radio podcast, are available at www.monsterkidradio.net. Please rate and review Bride of Monster Kid Radio wherever you download your favorite podcasts. How I Had in Mind is copyright 2025, Robert Kelly, the Wolf Cub of Comal County. You can find out more about that over at wolfcubmusic.bandcamp.com. You can find his 2 singles, this song, How I Had in Mind, as well as his first single, Scared to Death, or just go straight to his website at wolf-cub-music.com. Check him out. Let him know that you heard about him here on Bride of Monster Kid Radio. My name's Derek M. Cook. I'll talk to everybody next week. Ciao.
Well, I tried to turn my engine wouldn't turn. Tried to burn some gasoline, but the gasoline don't burn. Tried to spark my battery don't spark. Tried to change a light bulb, wound up sitting in the dark. Well, no matter how I try, don't know how I had in mind. And I'm trying to live right, but it don't go how I had in mind. Well, I tried to give up smoking, but see, winners never quit. Tried to say I'm sorry, come out sounding like tough. If I tried to get to work on time, well, you know I show up late. Tried to get to heaven, they leave me outside the gate. Well, no matter how I try, don't know how I had in mind. And I'm trying to live right, but it don't go how I had in mind. Well, mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. I know it drives that gospel train, but I can't get on board. 'Cause when they reach their destination, they'll send me the other way. Whiskey and the women, God, they would not let me pray. Oh, no matter how I try, don't go how I had in mind. And now I'm trying to live right, y'all, but it don't go how I had in mind. You know I'm trying to live right, but it don't go right. I said I'm